All right, so we're moving on to blue and yellow. So remember, your first image needs to be that primary color, blue, and your second image is combining those two colors. And also, we don't want to use the same object more than once. They both need to be entirely different scenes. So let's start off with Kayla's image here. And she's at ISO 400, 49 millimeters, so almost a normal lens, f9 at 1/80th of a second. So those settings all look good. It looks like you're using your light box that you probably made for PH 108, your tabletop light box, which is this is a great use for it. You created a scene and we're able to capture something that's very neutral in the background, all white. And then you have these different shades of blue. So you have the more cyan blue and then the more true blue in these areas. You have nice light on your subject because of the use of this tabletop light box. So this is a great example of a blue image. And then this is another really nice example of the blue and yellow being combined. You're at ISO 100, 37 millimeters, f16 and 1/80th of a second. Now I would probably make adjustments on that aperture. 1/80th of a second, you don't, you're probably can handhold that, but if wind came, it would mess up the sharpness of this image because the flower would move. But f16, you don't need that much depth of field. So I would open up your aperture instead of f16, maybe f5.6 or f8, and then you'd have a couple more stops of light to work with as far as your shutter speed to have a faster shutter speed. But your framing here is really nice with the flower given enough space all the way around. This bit of cloud at the bottom is really beautiful. Looks like you might have a little something on your image sensor there. The gradient from a darker blue to a lighter blue. And then here you're using hard light. And if you listen to the first critique I did, I was kind of pulling back, like hard light doesn't work all the time. We were talking about all the different soft light examples and how well those were working. But here, when you're photographing something so bright and cheery as a sunflower, shooting that with that hard light on it makes sense. It emphasizes the meaning of the image. So this works really well. And then if we look at your contact sheet, lots of different approaches here, kind of cropping in really tight on it. This sort of crop works. This sort of crop doesn't work as when you're just kind of cropping the edges of it out, or here cropping the edges of it out. So I think your framing works best, but something like this could also work. Nice job with that. All right, and then this is such a fun image. This is by Ayana, and you're at ISO 400, 46 millimeters, f5.6 at 1/250th of a second. So all the settings look good there. And you have this blue mat of some sort, and then you painted your mom's hand blue and placed it on top of the surface. So there's nothing that's not blue in this image. Everything in this image is blue, so this works perfectly. The light that's coming in has a little bit of a harshness to it as it comes and it's brighter on one side and then falls off on the other, but we don't have any strong shadows here. So it's a little bit stronger, but it's not hard light by any means. So this is a really fun image. Your image here, though, I think is much more fun. First, when I started looking at this, I thought you had just changed your white balance to have a neutral scene appear blue. But then when we see it here and you have the pop of those bright yellow flowers, it's clear that, oh no, you've painted someone's hand blue. And I think it has a whole different meaning once you add that other color that couldn't be adjusted by white balance. So are these the same settings? Yeah, same settings, which makes sense here. But now we have that pop of the yellow, and the pop works so well to guide us right where you want us to look and then start to examine the rest of the image. So we first come to the yellows, and then we start to examine why this hand is blue. Photographing this from the other side might work better so that we can kind of see into these flowers. Right now it seems like they're facing away from us. But you can see that light as it's brighter on one side and then darker in the center and darker in the areas that the light's not hitting. So we can see the direction that the light's coming in, and we can see that there's fall off from the light, and that adds to that dimension. Really fun, creative image here. So looking at all of these, This framing works better than what you turned in. And these are kind of fun as well as we kind of separate ourselves from the background. I guess this would work best where you're not cropping in on the top on any of those. This image is Brad's here at ISO 1600, so a really high ISO at 50 millimeters, f3.5 at 1/6 of a second. So there's not any reason to have a high ISO at 1600, so I would pull that back and shoot this at maybe ISO 400. Then you're going to have a longer shutter speed. Instead of 1/6 of a second, you might be at a full second, but that's fine because there's nothing moving in this image. Here you have light that's coming in that's a little bit stronger. We can see the bright edges, and then we can see as it falls off. We see the brighter areas. Here it's harder light, and then it falls off. So here we're able to really see where that light's coming in and the dimension that it's adding as we move across the blanket. It was smart for you to get close and simplify this image by just showing us the blanket. And then here, you have, it seems like impossible to me that a student has never done this before, use the lines of the road and a blue sky. So I think, oh, of course, that makes so much sense for this assignment. So I'm happy to see that you did that. So you have the yellow lines of the road leading us right to your subject who's wearing a blue jacket. And then we have the blue sky. You're at ISO 5000. So again, I'd pull down that ISO. 28 millimeters, which makes this seem even like she's even further away. And you can see how large she looks compared to the building in the background, and she's taller than the power line. So we can see that accentuation of the space with the wider angle lens. F3.5 at 1/25 of a second. So those settings all look good. I'm curious if I look at this in Bridge, if you're on a manual white balance. Oh no, you're on an auto white balance. Okay, good. You can see, oops, that's not what we want to see. You can see how the whole scene has a blue tone to it. So I was wondering if that had to do with the white balance, but it looks like you just had an auto white balance. So we have the yellow lines of the street, which work really well, but we also have the yellow blinking lights. We have the sodium vapor light that looks like in the background that's creating yellow. So it's more than just the yellow lines that are creating this blue and yellow contrast. Nice job. Moving around, this is probably the strongest image, having a little bit of that light coming down on her. But yeah, you're definitely playing with size and scale in all of these, playing with the color throughout the image.